Good morning, everyone. If you've been following the story of the Snowball, this morning we've reached the final episode. We're going to get to part 4 of the 4-part story very shortly. Just to recap on what's happened so far. So it's winter time, and the king and the prince have gone out into the countryside, and all day the prince has played with children around his father's sleigh, where his father lay sleeping. In high spirits, he picked up a snowball and threw it at his father's head. At that point, the soldiers took control, and they wanted to execute someone. And their theory was that if you were harsh and cruel, and it really didn't matter who you executed, you would give the people a message, and that would help to keep them down. However, the king wanted to do the right thing. And we left the story with the commander of the army presenting to the king a list of all the names of the people who were on the lake that day. And as I say, what he wanted to do was just execute someone, an indiscriminate decision. And this is how the king replied: "Whatever I decide, it must be fair and just." As he lay in bed that night, the king could not unwind. The events of the day were entangled in his mind. He followed the patterns of the timber in the walls and beams, searching for a doorway into the land of dreams. The church bell wouldn't die for him, and numbered every hour. He'd long since counted midnight, and sleep had lost its power. He went to the library and took a candle to the spines. Something in the room took him back to childhood times. Sometimes late at night, through the open door, he'd sit and watch his father studying the law. Often a passage would light his father's eyes. "Read the law of God," he'd say, "if you want to be wise. It's ageless, it's timeless, there's food for young and old. I'd rather have the law than my silver and my gold." How should the monarch live? How should he rule the land? What does God require of you? What does God command? God requires 3 things, whatever your estate. 3 things from each man, whether he is small or great. 1. You must do justly in everything you do. 2. You must love mercy, for it's been shown to you. Above all, don't exalt yourself. Don't think highly of yourself. Walk in humility and make the Lord your wealth. As he read these words, he felt his father's arm holding him, guiding him, keeping him from harm. His father didn't leave him to rule the land alone. He gave his son the scriptures before he gave the throne. The king made his mind up. Perhaps he'll never know that he spared his son that day when he let the matter go. The edict of the king was published far and wide. By word of mouth it spread across the countryside. By order of the king, it said, this 1st December day, on the subject of a snowball that somehow went astray, the king is satisfied that the act was not seditious. There's nothing to suggest it was deliberate or malicious. Let each man sleep securely within his bed tonight. The prince, more than anyone, was glad things turned out right. He'd never forget that day, the anguish in his heart. He loved the people deeply, though they were worlds apart. A little country girl whose nose was apt to run remembered the prince, and she knew what he'd done. She kept his handkerchief where no one could ever find it. If she promised not to tell on him, the prince said she could mind it